How to Force Yourself to be Disciplined by Garrett Cole Dawson. Listen, let me ask you something honest. You're waiting for motivation, aren't you? Telling yourself that when you feel like it, you'll start. When the energy is there, you'll begin. When everything lines up just right, you'll finally get going. But that day never comes. Garrett Cole Dawson says, motivation is a lie, and the people who wait for it keep waiting forever. Today I'm going to show you how to do it even when you don't feel like it. Welcome to Story Reads, and today we're breaking down Garrett Cole Dawson's book, How to Force Yourself to be Disciplined. Let's get into it. First, let's clear something up. Almost everything we've been told about motivation is wrong. We've been told to feel motivated first and then take action. That motivation will arrive and pull you forward. That if you really want something, motivation will show up automatically. These ideas sound good. They don't work. Garrett Cole Dawson says motivation is a feeling, and feelings come and go. If you're waiting for a feeling to arrive before you act, you are that feeling's slave, and a slave never moves forward. Real discipline means whether motivation is there or not, whether you feel like it or not, whether your energy is high or completely gone, you do it anyway. That is the shift that changes everything. Now let's go deeper into why. Garrett Cole Dawson says, the relationship between motivation and action is not what we think it is. We've been taught that motivation comes first and action follows. But it's actually the opposite. Action comes first, motivation follows. This is important. When you start working even without motivation, your brain begins to engage with the task. And as it engages, momentum builds. And with momentum comes motivation, which means motivation is not the condition for starting. Motivation is the result of starting. So the next time you don't feel like it, don't wait until you feel motivated. Just start. Motivation will show up behind you. Let me make this real with an example. There's a guy named Arjun. He's a student. He needed to study every day, but every time he sat down at his desk, the motivation wasn't there. He'd pick up his phone, open YouTube, tell himself he'd study. In a little while, one day he tried something different. He decided he would open his book without feeling motivated. He would read the first sentence. Just one. He read the first sentence, then the second, then the fifth. By the time he came up for air, 2 hours had passed. The motivation came. But after the action, that is Garrett Cole Dawson's biggest teaching. Action first, motivation second. Now the second big idea. Garrett Cole Dawson says, the biggest obstacle to building discipline isn't your feelings. The biggest obstacle is trusting your feelings too much. Think about it. When you don't feel like going to the gym, what goes through your head? You think, I don't feel like it today, which means I probably shouldn't go. Today just isn't the right day. But that feeling isn't telling you the truth. That feeling is trying to avoid discomfort. Nothing more. Dawson says, treat your feelings as information, not as decisions. When you don't feel like going to the gym, that's information. But it doesn't mean don't go. It just means your brain wants to stay comfortable right now. And your job is to acknowledge that and go anyway. This feels genuinely hard at first, but the more consistently you practice it, the easier it gets, because you're teaching your brain a new pattern. Discomfort showed up, we acknowledged it, and we moved anyway. Your brain records that, and the next time the discomfort is a little smaller, gradually, but it happens. Now something very practical. Garrett Cole Dawson says to build discipline, you need to build a real relationship with your future self. This concept is powerful. Your future self is the person who will live with the consequences or the rewards of your choices today. If you skip the gym today, your future self is a little less fit. If you procrastinate today, your future self is under more pressure tomorrow. And if you showed up today, did the work, took one step toward your goals, your future self gets to feel that reward. Dawson suggests a simple question. Whenever you have a choice to make, ask yourself this. Am I giving my future self a gift right now or a burden? That one question clears a lot up. Now, a very important concept. Garrett Cole Dawson comes back to one idea throughout this entire book. He calls it the 2-minute decision. Here's what it is. Whenever you have a task in front of you and you're on the verge of putting it off, ask yourself one thing. Can I start this for just 2 minutes right now? Not 5, not 10, just 2. And if you need to stop after 2 minutes, you can. Why does this work? Because your brain doesn't actually dread the work itself. It dreads starting. When you make the cost of starting so small that the brain can't justify avoiding it, starting happens. And when starting happens, everything else tends to follow. Remember Arjun. He read the first sentence. That's the 2-minute decision in action. Now, something that might surprise you. Garrett Cole Dawson says, the single biggest enemy of self-discipline is perfectionism. Most people don't see this connection. When you're a perfectionist, you don't start until everything is perfect. The perfect time, the perfect mood, the perfect conditions, the perfect plan. But perfect never comes. And while you wait for perfect, you never begin. Dawson says perfectionism is actually fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough, and that fear keeps you away from action. The solution. Good enough is good enough. An imperfect action that actually happened is always more valuable than a perfect plan that never got executed. A messy workout beats a perfect fitness routine that was never followed. A rough draft beats a brilliant article that was never written because you were waiting to feel ready. Done is always better than perfect. Write that somewhere you can see it. Now, a very practical concept. Dawson says there is a gap between the discipline we want to build and what we actually do. And the name of that gap is missing implementation intentions. An implementation intention means deciding specifically when, where, and how you are going to do something. Most people say, I'm going to exercise. That's a vague intention. The brain doesn't know when, doesn't know where, doesn't know how. An implementation intention sounds like this. Tomorrow morning at 7, I'm going to walk for 30 minutes in the park near my house. Specific? Clear. The brain knows exactly what to do. Research shows that people who set implementation intentions are 2 to 3 times more likely to follow through on their goals. Why? Because the decision is already made. When that moment arrives, there's nothing to negotiate. The brain just executes. Try it today. Whatever habit you want to build, write down when, where, and how specifically. 3 words. When, where, how. Fill in all 3. Now, something Dawson digs into deeply. He says, to make self-discipline truly sustainable, you need to shift your identity. Most people define their discipline around outcomes. I'm disciplined as long as I'm losing weight. I'm disciplined as long as results are showing up. The moment results slow down, discipline slows down with them. Dawson says, define your discipline around identity, not outcomes. I am a disciplined person. That's it. When your identity becomes a disciplined person, every action you take is about confirming that identity. You don't go to the gym to lose weight. You go to the gym because you are a disciplined person. And disciplined people go to the gym. That subtle shift makes a huge difference. Here's a small example that makes it concrete. Two people get offered a cigarette. The first person says, "I'm trying to quit." The second person says, "I don't smoke." The first person still identifies as a smoker who's struggling. The second person has already changed their identity. Guess which one actually quit? Dawson says, ask yourself this question every single day. As the person I'm becoming, what would I do right now? That question will guide your behavior every time. Now, an honest observation. Garrett Cole Dawson says the most dangerous moment in a disciplined journey is when you start to have a little success. Here's why. When some success arrives, the brain relaxes. It thinks we've earned some rest, some reward. We've been working hard. And if that relaxation goes unchecked, it slowly undoes everything you built. Dawson calls this the success trap. The solution. Celebrate your wins. Absolutely, but don't break your system. Celebrate the win. Continue the work. Both at the same time. Now, something very practically useful. Garrett Cole Dawson says to build discipline, you need to divide your day into zones. This is a little different from time blocking. Zones work like this. Dawson identifies 3. The peak zone. This is when your energy and focus are naturally at their highest. For most people, this is the morning. In this zone, do your most important and demanding work. The things that require the most mental capacity. The support zone. This is the middle of the day. Energy is moderate. Use this time for meetings, emails, and administrative tasks. The recovery zone. This is when your energy dips. Use this for light tasks, rest, or things you genuinely enjoy. This structure is powerful because it matches your work to your natural energy rhythms. You're doing the hard things when your brain is actually capable of handling them, and you're resting when your brain genuinely needs to recover. This is what sustainable productivity actually looks like. Now, something very interesting, Garrett Cole Dawson says, the most consistently disciplined people use something that very few people know about. It's called pre-commitment. Pre-commitment means limiting your future self's choices in advance. This comes from the story of Ulysses. Ulysses was a Greek hero who knew that when his ship passed the sirens, the sound of their singing would be so irresistible he would steer the ship straight into the rocks. So what did he do? He had himself tied to the mast before they got there, in advance, so that when the moment of temptation arrived, he literally could not act on it. That is pre-commitment. You limit your future self's choices before the moment of weakness arrives. Practical examples. If you don't want to be on your phone at night, lock it in another room before it gets late. So when the temptation hits, it isn't easily accessible. If you don't want to eat junk food, don't bring it into the house. So when the craving hits, there's no option available. If you want to keep going to the gym, pay for a membership in advance, and book a trainer. Once you've spent the money and made a commitment to someone, the cost of not going gets much higher. Pre-commitment removes willpower from the equation entirely. You don't have to resist. There's nothing to resist. Now, something important and honest. Garrett Cole Dawson says setbacks in a disciplined journey are inevitable. Nobody avoids them. But there is a critical difference between a setback and a failure. A setback is a temporary pause. A failure is a permanent stop. A setback is missing the gym one day. A failure is quitting permanently. A setback is one unhealthy meal. A failure is abandoning the entire effort. Dawson says treat setbacks as setbacks. not as failures, and hold to the never miss twice rule. One miss is fine, but don't miss two in a row, because two consecutive misses is how a new habit starts forming, and that is not the habit you are trying to build. Now, something that goes deep. Garrett Cole Dawson says, the biggest benefit of discipline is not the result you achieve. The biggest benefit is self-trust. This sounds simple the first time you hear it, but when it actually lands, it's profound. When you keep making promises to yourself and breaking them, your trust in yourself erodes. A voice develops inside you. It says you're not reliable, you can't follow through, you don't keep your word. That voice is damaging in ways that go far beyond any single habit, but when you consistently practice discipline, you keep those promises to yourself. And every time you keep one, your self-trust grows a little more. And when self-trust grows, something else shows up. Confidence. But not the kind that comes from compliments or external validation. The kind that comes from within. Because you know you will show up for yourself. Dawson says this self-trust is the most valuable asset you can build. Now, something very practical. Garrett Cole Dawson shares a technique he calls the accountability mirror. Here's how it works. Every morning, stand in front of a mirror. Look yourself in the eyes and ask yourself one question. Am I ready to do today what I need to do? And answer honestly. This works because looking in a mirror makes self-deception very difficult. When you look into your own eyes and ask yourself that question, a real accountability forms with yourself. And accountability to yourself is the most powerful kind there is, because you can fool other people. You cannot fool yourself, not when you're looking directly at your own reflection. Now, something that cuts to the root of most discipline failures. Garrett Cole Dawson says the biggest obstacle in a discipline journey is not external. It is internal. It is the inner critic. The inner critic is the voice that says, you can't do this. You've tried before and failed. You're average. This isn't for people like you. This voice is convincing because it sounds exactly like you. Dawson says you cannot eliminate the inner critic, but you can manage it. Here's how. When the inner critic speaks, acknowledge it. Don't argue with it. Don't try to prove it wrong. Just say, I hear you, and I'm doing it anyway. This works because you're not trying to suppress the voice, which never works. You're just giving it less power. The voice stays, but you move anyway. And the more you move, despite the voice, the weaker it gets over time. Because your brain strengthens the patterns that get used consistently. If you consistently take action despite the inner critic, the action pattern gets stronger. If you consistently stop when the inner critic speaks, the stopping pattern gets stronger. You are the one who decides which pattern wins. And finally, the most important idea in this entire section. Garrett Cole Dawson says, the people who maintain long-term discipline know one thing that most people don't. Discipline is not a destination. It is a direction. Most people think that one day they'll be fully disciplined, that one day all their habits will be perfect, that one day they won't have to force themselves anymore. That day isn't coming. Discipline is an ongoing practice, every day, again and again. But here's why that's not bad news. It's actually liberating. Because it means you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be pointed in the right direction. One step forward every day. That's enough. And those steps add up. They compound. And one day you look back and realize how far you've actually come. Not because you waited for motivation, because you showed up anyway. Now let's go into the layer that most people never reach. In the first part, we built the foundation. Motivation is a lie. Action comes before motivation. Stop trusting your feelings as decisions. Build a relationship with your future self. The 2-minute decision. Perfectionism is fear. Implementation intentions. Identity shift. The success trap. Day zones. Pre-commitment. Never miss twice. Self-trust. The accountability mirror. The inner critic. And discipline is a direction, not a destination. That was the ground floor. Now let's go higher. Garrett Cole Dawson opens this section with something that feels uncomfortable the first time you hear it, but it's true. He says the quality of your life is directly determined by your tolerance for discomfort. Think about that for a moment. Everything you actually want in life has discomfort standing between you and it. A better body, the discomfort of consistent training, a better career, the discomfort of hard-focused work, better relationships, the discomfort of difficult, honest conversations, financial freedom, the discomfort of delayed gratification over years. Remove the discomfort and you remove the growth. This is why the people who consistently run from discomfort consistently stay in the same place. Dawson says, a major part of discipline is learning to deliberately choose discomfort, not because you enjoy suffering, because you understand what's waiting on the other side of it. This perspective shift matters enormously. When you're in the gym exhausted and there's one more set left, you have a choice in that moment. You can experience that discomfort as a threat, as a signal to stop, as evidence that this is too hard, or you can experience it as a signal, as confirmation that growth is happening, as proof that you are exactly where change occurs. The discomfort is identical in both cases. The perspective is completely different. And the perspective is what decides whether you stop or keep going. Now, something interesting about why starting new habits feels so hard. Garrett Cole Dawson says your brain has a built-in protection mechanism that works directly against you every time you try to build something new. He calls it the comfort zone bias. Whenever we try to establish a new habit, the brain automatically generates resistance. Why? Because the brain loves the familiar. The unfamiliar registers as a potential threat. This is evolution. What was familiar was safe, what was unfamiliar was potentially dangerous. So when you start a new discipline, your brain says this is new, this is unknown, this could be dangerous, don't do it. And that resistance is what stops most people before they ever get momentum. Dawson says feeling that resistance is completely normal. It is not weakness. It is not a sign that you're not cut out for this. It is simply your brain's protection system doing its job. And when you understand that, you stop fighting it and start working around it. You acknowledge it. You say, okay, brain, I feel the resistance. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. But this is actually fine. And I'm doing it anyway. Then you do it. That reframe is genuinely powerful. Now let's talk about something that connects discipline to something much deeper. Dawson says self-discipline and self-respect are directly linked. And most people never see this connection. When you are consistent, when you do what you said you were going to do, when you honor your own commitments, something builds inside you. That something is self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation that everything else gets built on. Confidence, clarity, courage, all of it grows from self-respect. And self-respect comes from one specific source: promises you make to yourself and actually keep. This is why Dawson says, every time you choose discipline, you are sending yourself a message. That message is this: I matter. My goals matter. I take myself seriously. And every time you abandon discipline, you send the opposite message. Choose deliberately which message you want to send yourself, because you are always listening. Now, something tactical that works immediately. Garrett Cole Dawson talks about something Mel Robbins introduced called the 5-4-3-2-1 method, and he applies it specifically to discipline in a way that is genuinely useful. Here is how it works. Whenever you need to do something and you're hesitating, whenever the brain is saying in a little while, or maybe later, just count. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and on 0, you act. No negotiation, no second thoughts, just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Why does counting work? Because the countdown interrupts the overthinking loop. The moment the brain knows a fixed countdown has started, it stops looking for ways to stall. Countdown ends. Action begins. Simple. Effective. Dawson says this technique might seem too small to matter, but the people who use it consistently see their discipline improve significantly over time, because every time you count down and act, you are teaching your brain a pattern. Countdown, action, no excuses, and that pattern becomes automatic. Now, something that most conversations about discipline completely skip over. Garrett Cole Dawson says, recovery is just as important as the discipline itself. We tend to think the harder we push, the more we achieve. That's partly true. But without recovery, the pushing starts to work against you. On a physical level, if you never allow your muscles to recover, they don't grow. They break down. The same is true mentally. When you push your mind continuously without genuine recovery, mental fatigue sets in, decision-making deteriorates, creativity drops, and maintaining discipline becomes dramatically harder. Dawson says, stop treating recovery like weakness. Recovery is a strategic investment. When you recover properly, you perform better, for longer, more consistently. What does real recovery look like? Quality sleep. 7 to 8 hours. This is not negotiable. Research shows that after one night of poor sleep, your cognitive performance drops to a level equivalent to being legally drunk. If you have ever tried to be disciplined while running on 4 hours of sleep and wondered why it felt impossible, now you know why. Movement. Exercise that energizes you rather than depletes you. Walks, light stretching, anything that gets the body moving without grinding it down. Mental rest. Periods of time where you are not actively processing anything, where you simply exist without an agenda or a task. Genuine connection. Time with people who actually make you feel good. Not obligatory social time. Real connection. These are not threats to your discipline. These are what make your discipline sustainable over the long run. Now let's talk about something that sits outside your own head, but shapes your discipline more than almost anything else. Your social environment. Dawson references something Jim Rohn said that has stood the test of time. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If the people around you are disciplined, if they take their goals seriously, if they are consistently working to become better, that energy transfers to you. But if the people around you are constantly complaining, always looking for shortcuts, celebrating mediocrity and mocking ambition, that energy transfers too. Dawson says, choose your social environment deliberately. This is not about being cold or cutting people off. It is about being intentional about who you spend meaningful time with. You can deliberately give more time to the people who lift you, and you can gently reduce the time with environments that pull you down. And this extends to the content you consume, the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the videos you watch, the accounts you follow. All of it is part of your social environment. All of it is feeding your mindset constantly. If you consistently consume content from people who are disciplined, growth-focused, and honest about how hard the work actually is, that perspective slowly becomes your own. Curate your inputs as deliberately as you curate your physical environment. Now, something about gratitude that goes deeper than most people take it. Garrett Cole Dawson says, there is a hidden connection between gratitude and discipline that almost nobody talks about. When you are genuinely grateful, a specific neurological state gets created. In that state, the brain is more open, more resourceful, less threatened, and in that state, discipline becomes significantly easier. Why? Because gratitude shifts your focus from scarcity to abundance. When your focus is on scarcity, I don't have enough, I'm not enough, my life isn't good enough, discipline feels like a burden, like punishment, like something being imposed on you. But when your focus is on abundance, I have this opportunity, I have this capacity, look at how much I'm actually capable of. Discipline feels like a privilege, like something you get to do, like evidence that your life has real potential. Dawson recommends a simple daily practice. Every morning, write down 3 things you are genuinely grateful for. Specific things, not broad ones. Generic gratitude, like, I'm grateful for my family, is not very powerful neurologically. Specific gratitude, like, I'm grateful that I slept well last night and I feel clear-headed this morning, creates an actual felt experience in your body. And that felt experience is what fuels the discipline that follows. Now, something about tracking that Dawson takes in a different direction than most people expect. He says tracking your progress is essential, but most people are tracking the wrong thing. Most people track outcomes. How many pounds have I lost? How much money have I made? How many books have I finished? Outcomes matter. But tracking them is often demotivating because outcomes are slow. And when visible progress isn't showing up, motivation drops and discipline follows. Dawson says track behaviors alongside outcomes. Did I go to the gym today? Yes or no? Did I eat well today? Yes or no? Did I focus on my work today? Yes or no? Track these behaviors daily on a simple calendar, in a notebook, anywhere, a mark for every yes. When you start seeing a chain of consecutive marks, you will not want to break it. Jerry Seinfeld used exactly this approach. Every day he wrote his material, he put an on the calendar, and his only focus became not breaking the chain. Don't break the chain. This is elementary, and it works at an almost embarrassing level of reliability because you're making your daily behavior visible, and visible progress compounds into momentum faster than almost anything else. Now, something that brings everything together. Garrett Cole Dawson says, when we talk about discipline, we often forget one critical truth. Clarity without action is just a dream. Action without clarity is just noise. You need both at the same time. Clarity means you know exactly where you're going, why you're going there, and what the path looks like. Action means you actually move every day, regardless of how you feel. When both are present, that is when real transformation happens. Dawson has an exercise for this. Take one page. At the top, write this. What will my life look like 1 year from now if I stay consistently disciplined? Describe it in detail. Your health, your work, your relationships, your finances, your mental state. Be as specific as you can. Then read that page every single day. This keeps clarity alive and immediate instead of letting it fade into abstraction. And when clarity stays alive, action stays natural. Now let's talk honestly about something that is guaranteed to happen on every discipline journey: relapses. Garrett Cole Dawson is very clear about this. Relapses will happen. This is not maybe. This is certain. You will build a streak and then miss a day. You will have a strong month and then a rough week. You will feel like you figured it out and then find yourself right back where you started. This will happen. But Dawson draws a hard line between a relapse and a failure. A relapse is a slip. A failure is a decision. When you slip, you have a choice. You can decide that you failed, that this isn't for you, that you should stop. Or you can decide that you slipped. Okay, now I get back up. Both of those are decisions you make. The relapse does not make the decision for you. Dawson says treat relapses as data. When one happens, ask yourself why it happened. What triggered it? What circumstances were in place? And what would I do differently next time when those same circumstances show up? This approach turns every relapse into a lesson. Instead of letting the relapse define you, it teaches you. And every lesson makes the next stretch of discipline slightly more durable. Now, something about language that Dawson raises and that most people underestimate. The words you use about yourself matter more than you think. When you say, I am lazy, I am not a disciplined person, I can't do this, your brain accepts those as facts, and it shapes your behavior to match them. But when you say, I am working on this, I am getting better at this, I am becoming a disciplined person, your brain accepts those as facts too, and it shapes your behavior to match them instead. Language creates reality. So shift your self-talk deliberately. I can't do this becomes I haven't figured this out yet. I'm lazy becomes I'm choosing to rest right now, and I'll be better tomorrow. I'm not disciplined becomes I'm building my discipline every single day. These shifts feel subtle. They compound over time, and eventually the language becomes your identity. Now let's talk about values. Because Dawson says this is one of the most overlooked foundations of lasting discipline. He says to make discipline truly sustainable, you need to know what you actually value, not what you think you should value, not what society has told you to value, what you genuinely care about at the deepest level. Because when your discipline is aligned with your real values, it becomes almost effortless to maintain. Here's the difference. If you're going to the gym because you feel like you're supposed to look a certain way, that is not values-aligned motivation. It is external pressure. And external pressure fades. But if you're going to the gym because one of your core values is being fully present and energetic for your family, then every workout is an expression of what matters most to you. That is values-aligned discipline, and it holds up under pressure in a way that externally motivated discipline never does. Dawson's exercise is simple. Write down your top 5 values. Then look at your current discipline goals and ask honestly how each one connects to those values. If the connection is clear, you're in good shape. If the connection is missing, you might need to reconsider whether that goal is actually yours, or find a way to connect it to something that genuinely matters to you, because you cannot sustain effort towards something you don't actually care about. Not long-term, not at the level required to see real results. Now, something that Dawson says is a core discipline skill that almost nobody discusses: emotional regulation. When we are emotionally dysregulated, when we are very stressed, anxious, angry, or overwhelmed, maintaining discipline becomes nearly impossible. This is not a character flaw, this is neuroscience. Intense emotional states temporarily take the prefrontal cortex offline, and the prefrontal cortex is the exact part of the brain responsible for rational thinking and self-control. In plain English, when emotions are running very hot, the rational brain stops working properly, and the impulsive brain takes over. This is why, under extreme stress, people eat junk food. Why, under anxiety, people procrastinate on exactly the things they most need to do. Why, when people are overwhelmed, they abandon everything instead of just slowing down. None of that is laziness. All of it is emotional dysregulation, doing what emotional dysregulation does. Dawson says learning to regulate your emotions is one of the most important discipline skills you can develop. What does emotional regulation actually look like in practice? Deep breathing. When emotions spike, slow, deliberate breaths literally signal the nervous system to calm down. This is not a metaphor, it is a physiological response. Body movement. When you are emotionally overwhelmed, getting up and moving even briefly releases the built-up physical tension that emotion creates in your body. Name it to tame it. Research shows that labeling an emotion you're experiencing reduces its intensity, not just psychologically, neurologically. Saying to yourself, "I am feeling anxious right now," actually decreases the anxiety response in the brain. The pause. Before reacting to anything, give yourself one moment. Just one. In that moment, your rational brain has a chance to come back online. These are learnable skills. They improve with practice. And when your emotional regulation gets better, your discipline gets better automatically, because you spend less time in states where discipline is nearly impossible. Now, something that Dawson says is one of the most important reframes in the entire book. The most disciplined people are actually the most free. This is a paradox that most people never resolve. We tend to think discipline limits freedom, that discipline means restrictions and rules and things you're not allowed to do. But the opposite is true. When you are financially disciplined, you build financial freedom. Real choices about how you spend your time and your life. When you are physically disciplined, you have energy and vitality, the physical capacity to actually experience your life fully. When you are professionally disciplined, you create career freedom.